Hi, and welcome to episode 10. Welcome to Estas En Familia. Soy Cristina.
And Israel. And let me just say thank you for listening to us. And we finally made it to episode number 10. Can you believe it?
That's right. We made it to the finale. If you've been with us from episode 1 to episode 9, we thank you for you listening and your support. As promised, episode 10 is here, and we have a very important guest with us. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hello, everyone. My name is Tiffany McGlocky. I am a former co-worker of Miss Maria over here, and thank you for having me on the show.
Okay, so Tiffany is here as a certified, licensed
Or certified.
School counselor. Okay, so she's here to talk to us a very, very serious topic. So today's show will be mostly taped in English. You might hear Espanol here and there, but we are going to tape this episode in English. So if you guys need subtitles, make sure that you click on the subtitles here on YouTube. Otherwise, let's get started.
Make sure you tell your Gen 2 son or daughter to translate for you, because this is going to be one of those things you don't want to miss.
Absolutely. And this is something that you might, after you listen to it, you may be like, oh shit, which is what happened to me when I learned about the topic that we're going to be discussing today. So today's topic is childhood emotional neglect, also known as CEN, which I learned about on a by chance type of situation, not necessarily because I was looking for the information, nor because I was in counseling. Not
because we catched it on YouTube. It's an actual thing.
No, absolutely. So when I learned about it, I was blown away. And immediately I reached out to somebody who would know more about the topic, because, there's so many things out there in the internet that I was like, is this for real? How can it be? And how can I, as an educated person, not have known that this is a thing? And I felt some type of way. So I reached out to Tiffany at work, and I was like, did you know that this is a thing? And she looked at me like, really? Of course it's a thing. And then she kind of gave me more info, which we're going to discuss today, and it was an eye-opening experience, which is why I need all of you out there to really pay attention, because it might definitely be a shoe that fits, and you may want to take some actions on it. Okay? So
disclaimer, time to get your Kleenex out, because this is one of those touchy subjects that when you listen to it, you're going to be like, oh my God, I've been experiencing this my whole life.
Yes, which is how I felt, which is, believe it or not, why the whole Estas En Familia podcast came to be, was because I was trying to get this information out there. I thought if I didn't know about it, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people don't know about it, and it needs to be talked about. I think a lot of topics are taboo, and a lot of things are not touched upon in different cultures. The Latino culture, I speak from the Latino culture, but I know in other cultures as well, it doesn't get touched upon. And that's what I wanted to push. I wanted to push this specific episode, and it's finally here, and let's get into it. Tiff.
Yes.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So childhood emotional neglect. Now, when I hear neglect, coming from the school perspective, we see neglect, and we see parents sending their kids with dirty clothes, kids that go hungry. Neglect is like I'm beating a child half to death type of thing. So
the type of the things that you do that typhus gets called for.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Okay, yes.
Those are the things that are our red flags. Those are the things that we, like you said, Israel, called DCP&P for, and we worry but the emotional neglect is something that we don't realize that happens subconsciously, and maybe until adulthood you learn about it just like you did, and then you say, oh, that's a thing and that happened to me and I had no clue.
Then you end up in a corner just cradling yourself.
And you
crying.
go to therapy.
And you end up going to therapy. Okay. So before the therapy, go ahead. Before the therapy and before the crying yourself in a corner, what is and certainly we didn't get beat up. It was not like, oh my God, DCP&P needed to get cold.
Right.
But what is childhood emotional neglect? So the word emotional is there, and neglect is to not do something. Tell us what childhood emotional neglect is.
So the tricky thing about the definition, I feel like, is that emotional neglect can be on a spectrum almost. It's pretty much ignoring your child's emotions, their needs emotionally. And if we live in a very survival mode, fast-paced kind of environment, sometimes we don't have the time to, as the parents, to check in with your child and say, check in with their emotions. So that's what emotional neglect is. It's ignoring, it's not validating your child's feelings and emotions. And as you can see, you can do that one day and, pay attention to them the other day. So it's just a very wide spectrum of how it can happen, I think.
Okay, so I like that you said survival, right? So when we discussed, let's take 2 steps back. We Israel and I are touching upon the first generation type of experience here living in the States. Our parents are first generation, as are we, because I came in as a 10-year-old. Israel came as a 7-year-old. So the survival situation sounds like I'm out there catching tigers, but living in the States, survival is keeping a roof over your head, making sure that your kids are fed, making sure that, they're clothed, that they, this is a sort of survival in living in a country where you don't speak the country.
Right. It's living on a day-to-day basis, kind of fending and not knowing what's going to happen next, but you're going to make it happen.
Okay, yes. So, and then in that survival of sorts, you are pushing all of that well-being for your family, and your kids are there, and they're the family. But then it leaves very little time for, hola, ¿cómo estás? ¿Qué hiciste en la escuela?
Exactly.
That interaction that you're supposed to have with your kids, it kind of goes out the window because not only are kids trying to survive, but parents are trying to survive, to give them the house to live in, give them the food that they need to. So I guess that emotional support that they're supposed to have goes on the waistline.
And think about it this way. If you don't have time to check in with yourself as an individual, how are you going to know how to check in with somebody else?
Yeah, I think that's very hard. I think like first generation parents, they have that problem where it's just like work. Like I get home, I'm exhausted. It's time to shut down. And you don't really give your kids that support, that emotional support that they need.
So the definition is to ignore, you said, the emotional aspect, to ignore. And obviously...
to also not validate. So when a child is having emotions and showing emotions, it's kind of like, putting it on the wayside and saying, stop crying, let's just continue, let's just move on, there's nothing to be upset about. So even if the parent does see the emotion, they're not addressing it. So they're, ignoring and also not validating the emotion.
I think you hit a perfect keyword there, which was, what did you say?
Nah.
No. It just totally slipped my mind, but it's just like...
Not validating?
Validating. There you go.
Validating.
You don't validate the child's feelings. And I think that goes for a lot of immigrant families, because it's like, oh, you got hurt. Toughen up.
toughen up.
Yes, it comes with our cultures, definitely, and the generations, I think, too.
Right. So what culture defines you, Tiffany?
So my family is from the Philippines. My mother came here. My mother and my family came here when they were in their 20s. They, established themselves, and I was born here.
Okay, so by the definition that we have worked on since first episode, you would be considered second gen because you were already born here.
Yes, which I learned today.
So, this this cultural aspect goes into relatively a lot of cultures. I've heard my African friends talk about it. It was like, or the typical boys don't cry.
Yes.
Los niños no lloran.
Correct.
Right? Like you may be hurt, but right now boys don't cry. O calladito te ves más bonito. Right? Like
the perfect sana culito de rana.
Sana culito de rana.
Can you translate?
Translate is like
rub the ass of a frog.
Rub the ass of a frog.
What does this mean?
Let's say you have Miles, right? Miles is 18 months.
He's two.
Oh my God, I feel like I missed out. Okay, so 2 years old, and he goes and trips and falls, and he comes crying to you. Our usual would be sana culito de rana, and then you're fine now.
Okay.
Oh, it would be like the equivalent to American mother saying, okay, a kiss would make the boo-boo go away.
Gotcha.
And that's it.
Okay.
But we say sana culito de rana for...
Rub the ass of a frog.
Rub the ass of a frog.
Yeah, that shouldn't be translated.
I agree.
But it gets used quite a lot. So that will go kind of like into the validation type of aspect. So, not validating emotions. Check.
I think validating emotions is a big thing, because validating physical pain is like it's something that it's yours. Like, what's the word that I want to use? It's
you can see it.
Yeah,
you can see if your son is hurt.
But emotionally, it's so much harder because you don't know how hurt that person is, or how much of work or how much effort you need to put in to fix that person.
Yeah, that's a very good point. It's something that we cannot see. So physical abuse, even verbal abuse, you can hear it. Emotional neglect it's the lack of something. So that's just very hard to pay attention to. Whereas for the verbal and the physical, there's something that you can hear, there's something that you can see, and that's kind of what your gauge is. But like I said, the neglect is like it's a lack of something. How do you even pay attention, or how do you gauge that when there's no way to measure it unless you're aware of it?
Which in that survival mode that you speak of, we don't have time to pay attention to, did you hear that so-and-so was upset that his friend... And sometimes we think that a lot of these things are like, just get over it type of thing. Like, my friend didn't talk to me today. Get over it. It'll pass.
Right.
But to you as an adult, it might be just a get over it type of situation. But for that child, that hurt might be very, very big. And of course, I'm talking about, just a particular example. But we're talking about a number of things, or like you say, a spectrum. It could be very little, and then it can kind of grow into, my teacher was yelling at me, but you have said that whatever the teacher says is what goes.
Yep.
But I'm not going to now share that with you because, number one, you might yell at me for saying that, or... it not be validated at all.
Correct.
So,
right.
Okay. Okay, we have the definition.
Was that a good definition? Is that understandable? I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So, do you think in your professional standpoint that immigrant children are more likely to go through these type of emotions?
I do, because coming from knowing my culture, from like I said, my family's from the Philippines. We're Asian, and being aware of the Latino culture, even other cultures, it's very, I don't know of any culture that is very, that hones in on emotion and the sensitivity of a person. And I think that's just, it's something that's new. But I do see it in immigrant cultures more so than maybe, American culture here.
Right.
And I think that the thing that stems from it is the whole taboo factor of like, you don't really talk about your feelings. So you're not supposed to really feel anything. So if you don't talk about it, you're not supposed to feel it.
And it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
Right.
Yeah. And
right.
I really wonder why, why our cultures became that way.
No.
Maybe that's something that we can look
we
into.
need to dive really deep into that, but definitely.
So do you think that it's only mainly the Hispanic culture that does this, or coming from your point of view, does the Asian culture also does this?
I think the Asian culture definitely does do this too. We don't recognize emotion, and it's kind of the same. We kind of just say get up and move on, and therapy and talking about emotions is not really a prevalent thing, and things that they just get swept under the rug. It's like if as a child you get disciplined, you say okay, and then you move on. There's no choice to talk back. It's the adult's way or the highway.
Talking back. Okay, so if I allow my second generation son or daughter to talk back at me, is that a way of validating their emotions, or
is that just plain out disrespect?
No, that's. I think it can go both ways. I mean, if it's disrespectful, then it's
disrespectful.
Yeah, but if they're saying it in a way where they're just trying to express their emotion, and it's up to you as the parent to how you respond to it, then
it's pretty much up to your discretion.
It could be, yeah.
And that's us now as first generation adults dealing with our second generation kids. But back to how messed up we are. You said at the beginning that this neglect could lead to behaviors as adults. Now, in full disclosure, how I learned about childhood emotional neglect was in my journey to lose weight, right? So as I was trying to lose weight, and I'm part of an app, which I will not mention because
we're not sponsored by them.
We're not sponsored by them. I got in touch with the group of people that are part of the app, and somebody mentioned it, and how dealing with childhood emotional neglect allowed them to lose weight. Now, I'm going to be honest. I was like, if you help her lose weight, let me look into it.
Wow.
And that's how I looked into it. And when I looked in, like fully, well, not fully into it because you're here to educate me, I realized, yeah, like it really has made not the right connections, or there's like a shortcut of things that are happening in my brain and in my emotions that have allowed me to become this person that I am. And some may be good and some may not be so good. And I finally understood why that person mentioned it in the losing weight type of situation. Would you care to talk to us about that?
That's very interesting that's how you came to it. I think the emotional neglect part as an adult, it leaves a hole in you. You were talking about a gap or, something that you said wasn't quite clicking. I think it leaves a hole in us because what I see often is when, for example, when an adult is throwing a tantrum, you don't notice it as a tantrum, you notice it as, sometimes you can, I guess, but you notice the adult is being angry, they're responding in a way that an average adult wouldn't. When I see things like that, it makes me think this is their inner child that's coming out, their former, child, and they're knowing how to respond to their emotions. And I think that is one of the...
But that's the easy way to look at it, right? Have you heard these? And it's very American también, like to say, my inner child.
Yes.
I think for us Latinos, there's no inner child. There's like...
No,
different personalities.
Everybody has an inner child. It is definitely a newer kind of understanding of who we are.
Yeah. But that's the easy way to see it, right? That's like, somebody who's exploding or somebody who is doing something that is, again, visible.
Right.
What about the people who do things and it's the opposite? What are some ways that it affects them other than exploding?
I think for the opposite, those adults internalize their emotions. They bottle it up, and then it comes out in many different ways. Some adults use substances to deal with it because they don't know how to. I think the main part of it is that they don't know how to. They don't, number one, know how to even name the feeling, and then they don't know how to address the feeling, and I think it just feels like a big jumble inside. It feels like something uncomfortable, and they don't know how to address it. So they do the easiest things. They get into unhealthy relationships, I guess, and not knowing that it's something that they're trying to fill within themselves. They use substances, like I said, they abuse it. Those are just some of the ways that I can see. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in this whole I'm battling my emotions, can it be I'm battling my emotions and now I am picking at the mistakes that my husband is making, for example?
For sure.
Can it? Can I ask my producer to pull up some information that we looked up previously so that we can talk about something specific?
Which one? Here I have.
Okay, go down a little bit. So
Tiffany, when they say, when some girls have told me, it's not you, it's me, it's actually them.
It is 100%. It's them. I think
it's them dealing with issues.
I've always felt that, when somebody says it's not you, it's me, it's really them and it's not you.
but if you're dealing with your own shit, could it be like, oh my God, something is wrong with me and this is why another person is leaving me?
Yes.
Could it be like that sense of abandonment,
sure.
like, oh my God, everybody leaves me type of thing? Because I've seen that in movies. It's like, oh my God, everybody leaves me. My mom left me. Like, and now this.
Yes. That way too. Yeah. Yes.
So then it's two fucked up people dealing with their own issues.
Yeah.
One leaving, one staying, feeling hurt.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's heavy.
It is heavy. It is heavy. So,
is this it or further down?
Bájale un poquito. There was a list.
Okay. I think this look. Oh, the bullet point list.
Yeah. The bullet points.
Right here.
Okay, so I see this says some effects of emotional neglect are higher rates of anxiety, depression, or other psychiatric disorders. My English is not very good looking. Okay, so this thing about the anxiety.
Yes.
Anxiety, and we talked about it in another episode where we say anxiety is real, people. And again, that's something that's not talked about in the Latino culture. I think that before I learned about this, I learned about my own anxiety. I learned about, and I full-blown snotty cry, bag over my mouth type of like, let me get a hold of something because I feel like I'm about to pass out. Anxiety. And then I was just like, what is this feeling? Because I've never felt it. I was always the Maria, which we talked about before too. It's the very cool, calm, and collected Maria.
Yep.
What is this anxiety? I felt like the anxiety was like me finally losing control.
Mm-hmm.
Have you, like, what? How can anxiety come from the emotional neglect?
I think the anxiety can come from emotional neglect in a way that you don't know how to process what you're feeling, and it becomes this very confusing kind of road to navigate. You have no name for it. And then it comes out in a way. It's kind of like a physical response. Your body is responding physically to the emotions that you're feeling because it's all connected. And I think when you picture all your emotions getting bottled in, it's a feeling, yes, but it's something that is happening in your brain, and it's causing, for example, people who have a lot of stress, they have sometimes they have a higher heart rate. That's how panic attacks happen. Mm-hmm. So the feelings manifest their ways into physical things.
Okay, so anxiety and panic attacks are two different things.
Two different things, yeah.
So can you give us like an example of something that a regular person would actually go through, and they were like, okay, I actually went through that. I might have anxiety. Can you give us like a scenario maybe?
Sure. So, and connecting it to kind of the childhood emotional. So if you were emotionally neglected as a child, you grow up to be in a relationship with somebody, and it's maybe even just an argument that's spurring, and they're making you feel a certain way. Anxiety can look like shutting down. It can look like shutting down. It can look like not responding. It can look like withdrawal. And that kind of affects the communication part of the relationship. But, if prolonged and not addressed, it's definitely going to create a rift in the relationship. So that's it's a very broad kind of example. But that's one way that I can see it happening.
So you're saying if your parents, for example, they were withdrawn with you, they didn't show much emotion, that you're more prone going into a relationship being the same way?
Yeah, I think so, because we learn from our parents. If we don't learn how to address our emotions from them and from other people, how are we supposed to know how to address those feelings? It can turn, maybe the relationship can turn abusive because it just the anger or whatever is happening turns into something physical because the feelings are not being addressed.
Right. I think that showing love, I think, is something that something that we didn't experience as kids. Like, I don't remember my parents actually like hugging us and telling us like we love you. Mm-hmm. So that now that when we're adults, that it's kind of weird for me to go up to my mom and be like,
yeah, yes,
love me.
Definitely.
And we talked about one of the episodes prior to this, Tiff, how graduating high school, graduating college, it was just like, like Israel said, what do you want, a cookie? You graduated, like that's what you're supposed to do, type of thing. Not word of, oh my God, I'm so proud of you, you did it, like like those sort of things. So I don't know which one of them said it. It's like, were you looking for that? Were you looking for that approval?
That validation.
For sure.
And I'm glad that you mentioned it back here, because I was like, yes, I did everything I could to get that validation. So I'm thinking, as a young female, if you don't get that validation, which is how, like now going back into the TV that so much unifies Israel and I. It's like we see a lot of TV where it's just like, oh, there's a stripper dancing on a pole. Not saying that this is going to happen to anybody, but it's like, and then it's like, oh, you got daddy issues.
Correct.
And then it's like, what does that mean? And then when I learned about CEN, I was like, oh, that's what they mean by daddy issues. Like, you didn't have that, and therefore, I'm not saying this is the case for everybody. Maybe you just want to, you have a kick-ass body and you want to
maybe they just
show
want
it
to drop
off
it like it's hot.
Maybe that's you. More power to you. I'm just saying. Like that's where my brain went to, and it was just like, oh, you have daddy issues,
But you bring up a good point in the not having your feelings validated, and then as a grown-up, when you're in an adult relationship or whatever, even work relationships, maybe you become a people pleaser because you want to get that validation so badly. And, there's great things about being a people pleaser, but people pleasers do things to please others, and they neglect themselves.
Thank you.
Of course,
we
right.
neglect what we want.
Yes.
Or what we need. Not even what we want, but what we need.
We've also learned that our feelings are not important. We are not important because, not only to an extent, but we don't feel important because our feelings weren't important. They weren't looked at when we were a kid. So we kind of carry that onto adulthood.
All right. So whatever you say, it's like, oh, we're trying to eat. What are we eating? What are we eating? Whatever you say.
Yeah.
Like that type of thing. Like, okay, I'm pleasing you. I'm pleasing so that everybody is content around the table.
Right.
Whatever you say. Okay.
Yes.
No, but where are we going? No, wherever you say. And then if we have two people that have the whatever you say, then we ain't eating.
We're just going around in circles right now.
Yeah. Or think about at work when somebody's asking you to do something and your plate is full, but you don't want to say no because you want their validation, you want their approval, you want them to like you. You'll go above and beyond to do whatever, even though your plate is full.
Which eventually can lead to that anxiety. Like if my plate is already full, but I'm taking all these other projects, eventually I'm just like, oh shit, I'm going on 2 hours of sleep.
Right.
And, physically, your body cannot take it anymore.
Yes.
Okay.
So I think you bring up a good point. I think if you could take anything away from this specific show is if you're a people pleaser, you might be onto something. You might be, what's the word?
You might have experienced.
Yeah, you might have experienced
Childhood emotional
emotional neglect. You're trying to please everybody, and you have to stop, and you got to think about yourself also.
Your own priorities. Your own priorities. Now, here's the next thing. Lou, can you pull up that list again? All right, we have more frequent negative emotions like anger, guilt, shame, and fear. This, I think, like that anger can get built up inside of you. How can we feel guilt?
I think we feel guilty for just feeling our emotions, period. Because you think of it, oh, well, let me not say how I'm feeling because I'm going to feel like a burden. I think guilt
I can see that.
Guilt is a huge part of the Asian culture, and I don't know why, but you feel it's like you don't want to put any burden on your family because they're struggling enough. So the burden and the guilt, they go hand in hand.
So let me not ask for help.
Let me not ask for help.
Let me be,
let me just be quiet. Let me suffer in silence, and let me keep it moving because I don't want to cause my
I think
family
Maria and I have been on that same boat. Like I had told her, well, she knows my story because we live together. But one of the things is my decision of not going to college was because I didn't want to put my parents in a financial burden.
Oh, wow.
So I had to pretty much do it myself. I went to college and I paid everything out of pocket myself.
But it's not a conversation that you have with our parents saying, "Hey guys, I don't want to put you through a financial struggle, so I'm not going to go to college." You never had that conversation with them.
No.
You made that decision on your own because of everything that has happened in the past. Saying, "Hey, if it, like
you don't want to put the burden on your parents.
Like, oh, okay."
Right.
So we're talking about feeling guilty, feeling ashamed,
Angry.
feeling angry. Wow.
All right. Another one, right?
¿Qué pasó?
So-
Okay. So it says higher risk of substance abuse, which we talked about, and it's very prevalent in the Latino culture to always have your traguitos, and you don't have to wait till you're 21, right, Lou?
But I think that's more of a cultural thing.
Right. But if you already have issues.
Yeah, but so I was reading the list and I'm preparing a question to ask. But so number 4, the low self-esteem, and high self-doubt, lack of confidence. I feel like a lot of that's also built into our culture as well because we get made fun of, like by our own family.
You can't have a bright idea because you get shut down.
Yeah, it gets shut down. It's like you can't, like if you're helping your dad with something the entire time, he's just like knocking you for not knowing how to do things. He's, But I feel like that type of behavior kind of prepares us.
You can't even hold the focal right?
Yeah, you can't hold the light.
Can I hold the flashlight this way? No.
You're holding it wrong.
Yeah, but I think stuff like that kind of prepares us well, at least in my experience, prepares us for the real world, because you're not going to have managers being like, hey, it's like, no, they're going to yell at you because they expect you to know how to do things. So
That's true.
I don't know. It's like, do you feel, I don't know, this is kind of a loaded question. Do you feel that this part of it wouldn't necessarily be
Bad?
Yeah.
I think to a degree. It's always, everything is, if it's too much, then it could be harmful. If it's, you kind of have to find a good balance so that it can be a teachable moment. Just like stress, the amount of stress that you go through. If it's a good amount of stress, it'll make you be productive. If it's too much, you can be unproductive and procrastinate. So to answer your question, Lou, I think, it's finding a balance.
I want to touch upon the the negative. I'm going to jump to number 9 because he says a negative self-image or high levels of self-criticism and negative self-talk.
Yeah.
I think that my favorite thing to say to myself up until recently was "que muda," which means how dumb. Like anything that I'm doing and is not right, I would say to myself "que muda." Which, like I'm dogging myself, like, because I'm used to, like, that would be our answer to each other, like if we were doing something wrong. I think that I tend to do it to myself, and my thing is, which is why I really wanted to push this topic, is I saw that my children were learning the same thing, and that scared me. Mm-hmm. So I want to kind of like go in that direction now. You mentioned something before we opened up the show about it being generational.
Mm-hmm.
How can we make sure that it doesn't become a linking chain that happens on and on and on?
Mm-hmm. So breaking the, what do they call it? There's
the generational curse.
Yeah, breaking that generational tradition and the generational curse. It has to start with you. It has to start with us, because and I think the first step is to be aware of it. Period.
Be aware about it and start talking about it, I guess, right?
Yeah, because once you're aware about it and you say, oh, well, this isn't good, I don't want to continue doing this to my kids, and that's where we start. You start with yourself always first, because in order to be a good parent, in order to teach our kids these things that we want to teach them, modeling it through ourselves is the most important thing. Otherwise, there's going to be no substance to it if you just tell your kids what to do and you're not emulating it yourself.
Okay.
So that can look like you said, Israel, just talking about it. And I think talking about it you dig a whole lot of deeper things, and you might have to say, oh, crap, I need to talk to a professional about this because it was really bad.
That's when you need therapy.
Yeah.
And you got to be like Oprah. You get therapy. You get therapy. You get therapy.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's also a taboo in a lot of Latino cultures. It's like, what do you mean therapy? Go talk to el padrecito, go talk to the priest type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But therapy is therapy. Therapy is a licensed professional that would actually talk about these with the I guess the underlying factors of what we want to create, which is a healthy, emotionally healthy individual, right, that can then progress in life, right?
Mm-hmm. And I think a very simple way to start is just valid, like when you're a kid or when you're a student or whatever, is having emotions to say, you don't have to try to fix it. You don't have to say, just get up. It's okay. You just fell. You can say, oh, I see. You just pretty much name what you're seeing.
Restate the problem.
Yeah, I see that you're angry. It's okay to be angry. And that alone can do wonders. You're not fixing anything. You're just simply stating what you see. Oh, it looks like you're frustrated. It looks like you're really mad. But then when they start, like hitting and things like that, and I'm going through this with my toddler, he's 2. He's feeling a lot of emotions, not knowing what to do about it. So I try to say, you look angry. You look angry. It's okay to be angry. What we can't do, so you're putting a boundary down now, what we can't do is hit when you're angry, so that they know that it's okay to feel these feelings, but my response is not, I can't hurt people in my response. You just sit with it.
I think we need like a word for the day, like Sesame Street, and I think our main focus today is validation.
Yes. And it goes trust me, it goes a long way.
When you just say that, Miles is 2 and he's feeling angry, and you said, I think you look angry, you're also giving him the word for that feeling.
Yes, true.
Okay, which
true.
And I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna put myself on the spot. Me, I would have been like, "Wambla mocoso, boom, boom,
right.
Váyase al cuarto." Like,
and imagine our parents hearing us say these things. What are they thinking? I wonder.
It must be like, these are some new age hippies.
Yeah. It's very different for them, but like I said, this validation it's new. It's not new, but it's just coming up now. And I've been a school counselor for 4 or 5 years, and I think I'm only just seeing, the importance and like the simplicity of validating somebody's feelings and how far it can go.
Right. So I want to get into something with this whole weight loss situation. One of the things that it does, or it did, giving us a wheel of emotions. And I don't know if you can pull it up, Lou. A wheel of emotions. It's like...
Oh, the names
of the emotions. So it like divided the little wheel into... emotions. Like if I'm talking to a kid, they may say, I feel sad, I feel happy, I feel mad. Boom. That's it. Those are the emotions that a child can readily express. I'm sad, I'm happy,
Yeah, you
whatever.
think back at your kindergarten years and you're like, okay, this is the wheel of what you're supposed to feel. But there's more than those particular feelings.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
So, like if you're angry, look at how many feelings actually stem from feeling that anger is at the root of it. But you're like, I feel betrayed. Boom, boom, boom.
Jealous.
I feel jealous.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you really go into the feelings, then and then you have the words, then you can talk about what it is that is in your gut that you cannot express. And it's a regular thing for us to say, I feel some type of way. I do it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You feel some type of way.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, what is a type of way? Because a type of way is the whole damn wheel.
Yes.
That looks like a very complex wheel. That almost looked like complex...
It looks like something that they pulled from thesaurus.com.
No, it kind of looks like a FAFSA type of wheel. Like if you're looking...
Oh, my goodness.
If you're looking to...
Looks like one of those things that teachers used to grade.
Yeah.
Have you seen them?
Bien.
Yeah.
Look at that. It's and you know what I don't see there? Hungry. Hungry shouldn't be an emotion.
Hungry is hangry.
Yeah, sometimes I'm like, I feel some type of way. No, you don't. You feel, I do that all the time with my husband. I'm like, you're just hungry. Please, like, have a Snickers? No. Eat a bread. Like, that's my thing. Like, eat a bread. Don't talk to me right now.
Yeah.
Go and eat a bread and then come back. Dealing with all these emotions. But definitely...
But think about how how healthy it could feel to put a name to, and it's also giving you control. It's also giving you power because you're taking ownership of how you're feeling, and then you can move on. And even as I'm saying this, I do feel like our older generations listening are like thinking that it's very hippy dippy, but it's addressing the childhood emotional neglect, and I think we've all, honestly, I've all experienced it in some way.
In some way, shape, or form. Okay. So to say that anybody out there who's listening to this right now is like having an aha moment, or is that having an oh shit moment? Like I've definitely gone through this. For my main thing is you're not alone. Mm-hmm. You're not weird. This is something that has now been studied
We're all messed up here.
Yes, that it has been given a name for a reason, and that because it's being studied and there's a and I'm gonna put my quotations around it. There's a cure for it, and that cure involves therapy. It involves knowledge. It involves
Talking.
Validation.
Even if you listen, maybe you cannot afford therapy. Maybe you cannot. What can you recommend for somebody who cannot afford therapy?
Right. Okay, that's a good question. I think I don't know if you like journaling has always been a very healthy way for me. I started journaling when I was in the 5th grade, and I've always continued to keep it up, and it's been an amazing tool because nobody's reading it. You're not writing it for anybody but yourself. You can talk about anything you want. You can, and it just helps an individual process the things that are going on. If you're not a talker, you can write it down. You can type it. If you don't want to write it down, you can, I feel like as immigrants, as, first generation, second generation individuals, we're not comfortable talking about ourselves. We don't feel...
We're not comfortable talking about emotions. That's the thing. I think, at least for me, it's hard to actually pinpoint of how I feel because I'm all over the place,
Right. And then
I have more than one emotion at the same time.
That's true, and a lot of us do, but also as a male versus females, your experience is much more different than ours. I think you have been told to suppress your emotions more than we have. So I think the emotional neglect is a different experience for males in general.
Yes.
True.
Right.
I didn't even think about that particular point, but yeah, starting with the whole boys don't cry situation, it extends. It's like men need to be the provider.
Correct.
Men need to be the ones that take care of things. Men, So kind of like a lot of people say, they're not in tune with the feminine side just to say they don't know how to express emotions.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be that way. It's a male, female, it's a human experience. And I think showing our emotions, you can, it's just showing that we're human. We're not perfect. We're not made of stone. We have feelings, and every single person has these feelings as well. So it's like putting up a facade that, we're all perfect. We don't feel these things, and everybody actually does.
Okay, so if I can't afford counseling or therapy, I could look into...
That journal will do wonders for you.
Journaling. And you speak from personal experience.
Well, yes and no. I do see a therapist, and one of the things she actually has suggested for me to do is actually write my thoughts down in a journal. And I told her, that actually makes a lot of sense. I'm gonna call it my shit journal because it's like a lot of anger, a lot of things that I can't share with anybody else. I'll go into that thing. So she's like, it's hard for you to share your emotions. A way for you to let things go will be just putting down the things in your journal. And it's going to be something that down the line, you could always look back at and be like, okay, this really bothered me. Why did it bother me? Or for work type of situations,
Yeah.
I like that he says, why did it bother me? Like, you can look back and say, why did this, what, and then look back and say, well, how did I react after the fact? I like that. Like, I used to do a lot of, back in my day, they called it writing in a diary. But even then, I felt like our parents could just pick it up and read it, and then it was like, do I really want to write? What do I want to write? Are they going to find this and say, oh my God, I hate my mother, and then all hell breaks loose because I wrote it in a rage of anger, or like, you're not letting me do what I want to do type of thing, or you're not letting me express myself. Then I haven't done it in many years. Like, I write, I write. I love to write. But I don't think I have written about my feelings as much as writing about what I'm thankful for. Like, I have kept my writing to like 1 or 2 sentences of what am I thankful for. And like, that helps me, even if I have a shit day, focus on even like the tiniest little bit of what went right.
Right.
So I grasp to that
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day. But certainly I can see how journaling is good.
I think just starting, and it's something that we all have. It's not something that can change in an instant, but the negative self-talk that we mentioned before, changing the way we talk to ourselves, the narrative that goes through our head, and being the, so if we didn't hear that, oh yeah, I love you or I'm proud of you when we were younger, to kind of be that person for ourselves, because at the end of the day, we can't really rely on our parents, if they're still around, to give us that love, that validation. We can't really rely on our
Spouses.
partners, correct, our children, which, like a small example, that's the reason why people get dogs, because they want to love that dog, they want that dog to love them, and it's a companionship. But at the end of the day, you don't really have anybody else but yourself to rely on.
So in order to change that narrative, we see a lot of positive affirmations now.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so I can, like, we see the little girl in front of the mirror going, I am strong, I am beautiful. Like, can we do that as adults?
Yes, yeah.
And,
or even when something crappy happens and you beat yourself up about it, let the moment pass, let whatever you're feeling, disappointment, anger, sadness for yourself, and say, okay, I'll do better. And we just become the parents to ourselves that we wanted when we were younger. And I kind of think that helps heal the wound, maybe, or the gap that was not filled when we were younger.
So we're dealing with that inner child that you said.
Yeah.
So we are parenting ourselves.
Yes. What do you think about that?
Give ourselves an ass whooping.
We go stand in front of the mirror and go, sana sana culita de rana.
You look at yourself. I did not raise you this way.
Okay, so we can journal. We can definitely practice positive thoughts or positive affirmations.
Self-affirmation.
Self-affirmations. Okay, which self-affirmations?
Validate your own self, right?
Okay.
Say it's okay that I am mad about this. It's, even if we feel like it's the smallest thing, you're still entitled to feel however you want to feel. There's no right or wrong feeling, and then you move on from there. Then you see what the next steps are to kind of find that peaceful balance again within yourself.
Now, in order to kind of wrap it up and close it, Tiffany, as a school counselor, and you see children day in and day out, what are some consejos? What are some advice? Thank you. That you would give other parents that are having that aha moment, like, oh my God, like, am I doing this to my kid? Now we're talking about how we can fix ourselves.
Right.
How can that generation one parent listening to us help their children?
So I think Israel said it before, how emotions are taboo. To maybe first not even think about that it's taboo. It's not taboo anymore. Let's not say that it's taboo anymore, and let's open up our minds to maybe find some information on it. All you have to do is Google childhood emotional neglect, and there's there's no taboo. Nothing. We've all gone through it. So to learn about that, and I start with yourself. Like I said, I start identifying emotions that you feel. And when our kids are having those big feelings, to say, it's okay. It's okay to feel those things. I still love you. Because I think as kids, when we have those big feelings, we get scared that our parents won't love us anymore, or, we're a burden and we feel guilty. But like I said, we all feel those emotions. So to just say, it's okay. It's okay to feel frustrated. I still love you. It's okay that you spilled the milk, and yes, I am very mad, but you made a mistake, but I still love you. Not but. I think the and part is important, because it's not you did this, but it's you did this and I still care about you. I'm still here for you. And just validating. That's the word. Yes.
Can I just bring something? How is it that it's like, all right, we can make the change in our own families, but American media and just media from like our countries, and they always depict, like, there's always somebody on there that's the butt of the joke, and it tends to be like, let's say like Family Guy, Meg is the butt of the joke. She's one of the most emotionally neglected characters on that. In The Simpsons, it's Lisa. So there's this culture of just having that being the butt of the joke. It's like, how can we change that in our house, but it, like, still have that type of behavior still being depicted?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think it's just letting that still happen, because it is still
part of the cultural.
Yeah, and it's still.
So you don't recommend you standing up to them and be like, "I am not a joke."
No, but also in addition to joking with them, to just check in with them and say, although we do joke, that we still love you, right? And if you feel like it's too much, let us know, and we can. There's, I don't know, adjusting how that occurs, I guess, can be very helpful for that person. But just saying, I see that this might be making you feel sad or frustrated, and
so we can still bully them, but bully them with love.
Yeah,
is that what you're saying?
Say, my bad, I'm sorry. Let me ease up, and I still love you.
Like you say,
I still love you.
And I still love you.
I think there's like that guilt of actually feeling certain ways, and you're like, in a way, you feel guilty of actually speaking up for yourself. You can't be going up to your family and be like, "Hey, I didn't like when you called me caca."
Oh yeah, definitely not. Definitely not.
They'll roast you, and then that'll be your nickname for the rest of your life.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I guess we do have to have tough skin, because it is a tough world out there. But there's also a softer side to things as well, and to be mindful of both things. It's not just you got to have tough skin and that's it. I think it's you got to have tough skin, and you also have to feel loved at the same time. Mm-hmm. So it can look like many different things, but everybody experiences it in a different way.
Okay. Wow. Have you learned anything today, Israel?
Yes. I learned that it's okay to feel a certain way. I think I also learned about validation. Just to be open with everybody else. I guess that's the big key word that we want to put out there. Validate your feelings and validate other people's feelings. So you kind of get your point across, so you could actually stop that generational curse from going forward. Validate your kids' emotions, validate your own emotions, put yourself as a priority. And I guess, that's about it.
Yep.
Did you learn anything?
Yes, I learned that journaling is something that can help, definitely, and I might just pick it up again. I think that and it goes with what Israel says, make yourself a priority, because as a mom, I'm just like, I gotta do the dinner, and I gotta do this, and I gotta do that, and you kind of like are at the end of the line. I think that I'm gonna learn to be a little bit selfish, to put myself first, and I'm gonna do that through journaling. And see where that leads me. But this has been an eye-opening experience. I thank you for taking the time and coming in and talking to us. I feel like everything we have done, episode 1 through 9, has kind of led to this, into realizing that yes, we are a generation of Latinos, of immigrants that have come here, that have fought to become the adults that we are. Through many different experiences, whether that's learning English, whether that was going to college, going into the military service, whatever we did has brought us to this point. But sometimes there's all these little nuances that happen in our childhood that could create a chain reaction into our adulthood, but that doesn't mean that we're broken people, that we can still
have healthy lives and be happy
right.
and
Healthy relationships.
Healthy
relationships.
yeah,
Which is really important because we don't want to go through our lives just
alone and
alone,
have fighting with everybody.
Thank
you know,
or people pleasing everybody to the day you die, and then not being happy on your own accord.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important.
And I think the biggest thing that I got from our conversation today is just to remember that we are important ourselves, you know, because maybe we didn't get that message when we were younger, or, you know, maybe it's just like, you know, you putting yourself first kind of thing, you validating the emotions. It's remembering that we are important in our own lives and not putting ourselves on the back burner and being that person for us too, if nobody else can be.
Yeah, I love that. Parenting ourselves. I love that. Because,
Yeah, I like that message.
Yes. That's what I take. I take it back. No joy. Parenting myself. That's what I take away from it. I really, there was a message at some point on Facebook that I read. It was like, if I could be any person, who would I be? Like, if I could be reborn again, who would I be? And the message read, I would be my mother's mother. To tell her how she's loved, to tell her how, because in that sense, everything that comes out of my mother would now be different.
Right. And then it would change you, would change everybody.
So I do believe that it is generational, because as I think back, how was my mother brought up? How, you know, what did she experience as a child? So if I could be a person, I would be my mother's mother.
And knowing what we know now, you know.
You know, I think that it comes with a generation thing, that when people get older, they kind of reflect on their on how they've been acting. Because I don't remember, my grandmother was hard on my mother, but we didn't really have a lot of time with my grandmother per se. But the time that we did have, it'd be like, oh, it completely changed. She was like a sweeter person to an extent, you know.
So my parents are sweet grandparents to our children too. I think that when they become grandparents, the chip changes.
I think that's something we need to talk about somewhere down the line, because
no, I think Izzy's right. I think they have had enough time to reflect, and now they see this like innocent thing, and they kind of think about it. It's like, damn, I really was.
True. And then they get a second chance almost to be.
And then they're not in survival mode anymore.
Yeah,
too.
that's right. That's true.
You know,
that's a whole other conversation.
It is.
Yeah.
But we're running out of time today. I want to thank Tiffany for taking the time and being here and educating us. And just out there, please know you're not alone. This is something that you can definitely get help with. If you decide to get therapy, please go into therapy. If you're feeling anxiety, know that anxiety is real. If you're having panic attacks, please sit down, breathe. It's going to be okay. Breathe in, breathe out.
And we are not alone.
And we are not alone. You're not alone. Practice positive affirmations. Practice parenting yourself. Please tell yourself you love yourself. You know, and let's be the best versions of ourselves from now on to the future, especially if you have young children, because those young children can now not need therapy because of us. They may need therapy because of something else, but not from us. You know, stay safe out there. Remember que estés donde estés, no estás solo, porque aquí estás en familia.
Remember, we family now.